Hey, all. Brother Charles here. Today I'd like to talk to you about following God. You see, in today's society, there are a lot of people that call themselves Christians, but their actions do not reflect that. You know, if something as big as God comes into your life and you accept the free gift of salvation of Jesus Christ and it doesn't change you, there's something wrong, friends. So, I'd like to take you back to 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 21. And let me lay out the groundwork here. You see, Elijah, God's prophet at the time, came on the scene and told Israel basically there's going to be a drought for 3 years. There's not even going to be dew on the ground like you see fog and stuff in the background. It's not even going to be that because God is judging them. Now, later on, after this, King Ahab's wife, whom Elijah was talking to, had all of God's prophets, well, most of them, slain, and except for a very few of them that went into hiding. Well, Elijah later comes back on the scene and says to Ahab, gather up all of Israel and let's see who the true God is. You see, Israel at the time was following after Baal, and Elijah wanted to gather up everyone and God to show himself, show who he truly is. So they all get gathered up around the altar, and before all the prophets of Baal and all of them start doing their thing, because Elijah was going to let them go first. He knew that God was God and that God would prove himself. And he looks over at the people because you have the people of Baal and basically nobody really standing over here for God because everybody was terrified for their lives because Jezebel would kill them. Well, there are people standing in the middle, and Elijah came unto the people and said, how long halt ye between two opinions? If the Lord be God, follow him. If Baal, then follow him. And the people answered him not a word. Now, dear friends, this is the conundrum that the world faces. The lost out there have two choices. You choose Christ or you choose the world. Now, there are many variations of the world. I mean, you see the devil's peddling all kinds of different things over the years and kind of just tries to see what sticks. But there is one other choice, and that is God. And if you love him and you follow him, you will keep his commandments. You see, there's a lot of people that call themselves Christians, as I said earlier, but live like the world. We've seen many over the years. Elvis Presley, we could go back and look at him. He loved gospel, but then when you look at his life and his actions and things like that, that didn't reflect them. Now, I I have no reason to believe that Elvis was ever a Christian because of his lifestyle. And we see it even today in modern people coming out of Hollywood and the government and whatnot. You have many people that are in our government today that say that they're Christians, but yet they believe in murdering children simply because the child is an inconvenience of the mother. We see it in many artists today that say that they're Christians. Taylor Swift, she says she's a Christian. She says she was raised that way. Pumpkin, you don't live like that and be a Christian. I'm sorry. There's something wrong if you're living in that kind of open defiance with God. Now, don't get me wrong. Christians can get backslidden. Christians can mess up. But for you to live like that unrepentant, something's wrong. In our churches today, we see it within the music. You see, you can't serve two masters at once. You will love one and hate the other. Uh, you simply can't. God would that we rather be hot or cold. Jesus said that. And people today think that Jesus is just some loving hippie that had no convictions, that never upset anybody. Friends, that's not who Jesus is. You see, the modern Christian today that call themselves Christians, they go to church, and I blame a lot of the preachers of the churches too, because preachers are supposed to reprove, rebuke, and exhort. There's a whole lot of exhorting going on, but not a whole lot of reproving and rebuking. And you have these people that go to church typically on Sunday mornings, no other services throughout the week, and they go there, they they look the part, they act the part, but man, as soon as they hit those doors on the outside, they go back to living like the world. You find them in bars and at home watching the world's television, cussing. There's nothing different about you from the world. That's not true salvation, friends. Salvation is when you come to the knowledge of Jesus Christ and you accept the free gift of salvation and you keep his commandments and you love him. You see, friends, God would rather that you not even serve him at all. He'd rather you serve and live after the world than whatever this mess of mixing Christianity and the world is that we see in modern Christianity. I hate to even call it that, because you can't live like the world and live in sin and waller in it and it not bother you and call yourself a Christian. That you're not a true Christian. You're not reflecting God's values. You're not keeping his commandments. You don't love him. You don't know him. We can't live like this. And dear friends, that's what's happening with the country today. We want the blessings of God. We want the prosperity that God allows this wonderful country to have. Even if you don't live in America, being a Christian is the most wonderful thing that you can do, dear friend. But you can't do it half in, half out. You have to be hot or cold. You have to be in or out. You got to get to knowing who God is and love him. You can't live like the world and expect to get the blessings of God and to live a life for God. He won't allow it. If you go back in the Old Testament and you look at Jerusalem, there for a time, man, they'd see the works of God and they'd get sold out about it. They'd be excited about it. Well, very shortly thereafter, they'd go back to living just like they did. And dear friends, we need revival in this country. We need people to remember who God is, what he's done for us, and what he saved us out of. And we're not going to get that. We're not going to convert people by acting like the world. You're not going to get a drunk out of drunkenness by going and drinking with them. We're not going to reach the world by living like the world, and we're not going to reach the world by the world's music. Dear friends, God is a spirit. He wants to be worshiped in spirit and in truth. You can't do that with the world's music. When we're mixing these things, we're serving Baal. We're not serving God. The fleshly music that we call Christian music today is serving nothing but our flesh. That's not how God wants to be worshiped. That's not how God wants his word spread. That's not how you're going to reach the world. It's just a light version of the world mixed in with God here and there. It baffles me, friends. If you truly know who God is, you will understand how he wants to be served. You will understand how he wants to be worshiped. And the only way that you can do that, friends, is by reading his word. The King James Version, because boy, there's a lot of translations out there. It seems like today every Tom, Dick, and Harry has a translation. And this whole mess started back in around the 1950s. And that's where we saw the decline that we see. This deep slide into whatever we have going on today is to where we can clearly see the judgment of God upon America. And dear friends, if we don't turn back to God, if we don't know who God truly is, I fear for this country. I fear for God's judgment upon us because what we've had is remarkable. The only way that we can have this is by God. Friends, I plead with you. Know who God is. Love him. Keep his commandments. Follow him. Serve him. Because we're not going to have what we had before. Please, you can see the judgment all around you. Go to the grocery store. Look at a few years ago. God is pulling his hand off of this nation. And it's going to get real bad real quick. Friends, if you've gotten this far in the video, I thank you. Please take the time to like and subscribe. I truly want to see God return in people's lives. I want to see people come back to God. I want to see us fellowshipping with him. I want to see revival. And the only way that we're going to see that is if us as Christians get out there and win souls to Christ. Show people who God is and live his values. If the world looks at us and sees nothing but more of the world, it ain't going to do anything. Hope y'all have a wonderful day.